I'm going to play two reels. I played those two tunes one time for Matt Molloy. What he described them by, he said he called them the two sister reels. A reel called the Limestone Rock, and another reel with much the same notes, the Maid that left the county. Well, the two next tunes I'm going to play, that'd be, well, the first one would be a Clare Jig, and the next one would be a Kerry Slide. So this Clare Jig is very old tune. I think they actually danced the plain set long ago with it. So I don't know how was it. It is a slide with the older musician used to play it as a jig. So. In the old days, they used to dance, of course, polkas is more of a Kerry dance, but they used to dance polkas for the last figure of the Clare set. So I chanced to have two polkas. The first one would be Katie Moloney's polka, and I think the Lisdoonvarna polka. So the next tune would be a reel called the Concertina reel. So my mother Lochna used to play the concertina, and my brother that died, he used to play too. So around our own part of the county, it was mostly concertinas that was played in the old days. So, but before that, they used to play the flutes, all right, but the concertina came in very being into being. There was an old concertina in every house that time. So this would be the concertina reel, and another reel called Drowsy Maggie in an old-fashioned way. This time 'tis an air of a song called, well, they call the fair-haired child, well, that in Gaelic language would be the Páistín Fionn. So my mother and father, both of them, used to sing it in Gaelic, so I'll just introduce it with one short little verse and a verse in English. It goes something like this now. Kralle man mo Páistín Fionn, Chris a hain a gari lum, Criach a gala mar blan an ul, is a piab mar a gala le Marta. Tus a morron, 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 tus a morronus ma gra gal, tus a morronus ma chumman geboan, she de krachen te gum o de waher. Well, the two next tunes I'm going to play, that'd be what they're called quadrilles. Well, to talk about the quadrilles, you take up an awful lot of time, but the only thing I have to say is that they used to be played for the plain sets, I think, in Anach Clare long ago. The first one would be, I really don't know the name of the first one would be, but the second one would be The Cumann is Dead and Gone. So, a man called Joe Donovan, he's a great dancer down the County Cork. That man can explain all about the Cumann, you see, what happened that time. So, well, to go back to the old type of playing, a man called Moloney, God rest his soul, he had an old kind of a way of playing that's very hard to, his way of his timing the G. It was very, very old fashioned, but something like this now. like to play an air, a song this time. It's an air called Lochna. It's a place in Scotland. So I played the air and a reel after called Patsy Camel's Reel. So in order to change the keys for to play, the big tin whistle wouldn't sound so good for reel, so I'd play Patsy Camel's Reel in a D tin whistle. Well, this time 'tis a song called for Ireland. I wouldn't tell who she'd be, so in Gaelic that would be a Sarer in Inos and Cahia. So I might have, maybe I mightn't be able to sing all the verses, but all I have, I'll try and sing them. So. There's a home on the hills of Glendore that sweeps o'er the broad open sea, where the wild river rushed through the foam, and the bulrushes wave with the breeze. For to be up and to see my own Eirinn, and fondly she waited for me in the old cot by lovely Glendore. Is Eirinn Neosfainn Cahi. I'd climb the highest hill on the land, and I'd swim through the depths of the sea, for to get one kiss from her lily white hand. Is Eirinn Neosfainn Cahi. Last night as the sun was aglow and sank into the snowy white west, and the clouds were like mountains of snow as they bid their grey home in the west. She's the fond maid I adore, my comfort of life then is she. She is to be my own promised wife. Is Eirinn Neosfainn Cahi. Well, this time 'tis an old song. I got it off of my own mother, Lochna. So I'm sorry, I haven't the fourth verse, but I sing 3 verses. So the music would be something like this. Just 18 years of age I was, my mother's fair hair by. She kept a little huckster shop, and her name it was Molloy. I have 13 children, Patsy she, which aren't to me a cent. For children aren't pigs, you know, they don't help to pay the rent. From Ireland to America, across the seas I roam. Every shilling that I had, sure I sent it home. My mother could not write, so it came from Father Boyle. God bless you, Pat, said she, I can hear my mother's voice. Now I'm coming home again, as poor as I began, for to make Molly a happy girl, and I think I can. My pockets they are empty, but my heart is full of joy, for old Ireland is my country, and my name it is Molloy. are some jigs, you see, they're mostly, well, I think there could be songs first, you see. So I have a jig called Tatter Jack Walsh, but there's older words to that, like it's a clone gal mala is carrig na sur imagine bone droch the mohon sa war. The castlum tanner bu yeshis bewoonche. Oh, there's words missing, you see, with the lash line with the Nyakari force. So it is very, when we reached up to Cashel, we called for a quart of ale. Corked and couple, agus the hoch and fair. She dúirtílim fanlim gorála muid brain, and while we were there, the pair went off in the train. So, this time to the tune called, or to the jig called The Bride's Favourite. So, you can play this tune as a march. I found out about it from a piper called Dick Grant. Dick comes from Dublin, and another man called Eugene Lamb. They told me that you can play it as a march, but I remember playing it in Doolin at a marriage ceremony. Myself, or Dick Grant and myself, we played it for a girl who was getting married. So the next place I played was abroad in Holland. I was at a wedding in Holland, so well, that's the way we played it for the two who was walking up to the altar to get married. So the jig time would be Well, I might play some what they call slip jigs. The first one would be Barney Brannigan, I think, and an old one called We Will Be Drinking Till Morning, or some Beimid Yol. Well, this time it would be one of the slow airs. Well, they call it Anach Cuain, so it is as good as what I can do, like. So maybe this time it would be two jigs. The The Walls of Liscarroll, I think, and The Little Black Pig, another old jig. It would be called, in Gaelic language, the Bonavine Dove, so